people are weirded out by when it comes to intelligence agencies in this day and age, that they kind of act autonomously. They kind of act outside of what we think of as the government. We think of the government as being a bunch of people that get elected, and those people do the rule of the people. But the people that are in the intelligence agencies, they're there forever, and that's the term, the deep state, that everybody's so concerned with, right? That's a common phrase that's been brought up over the last decade or so, where people are very concerned about the deep state. That there's a government that has its own rules and its own ability to enact things that are outside of elected officials and the will of the people.
Yeah, and I can see why people think that way. Having been behind the curtain for all that time, I guess there's two parts to this. One is never say never, right? I mean, you never want to discount the idea that the intel community or law enforcement or whatever could essentially develop a mind of its own, work separate from whatever government administration the people think they've elected into office. So never say that couldn't happen, because you always want to be wary of that. I've spent enough time overseas in places where that happens, right? And worse than that is where a dictator comes in, he goes out, wholesale cleaning, and then the new guy brings in all his people, right? And they're just basically doing the will. Now, in a way, that's more transparent, right? Because you know what you're getting, right? You're getting that guy's intel service or that guy's law enforcement. But having worked behind the curtain, at least the time that I was there, the agency was uniquely apolitical, right? All the people that I traveled around the world with, or the people that I met, worked with in various parts, we never talked about politics. It was just not. It was not an issue. We never.
Do you think that changed during Trump?
I think it was probably even before Trump. I think it's just been a process where, and I have no idea why. Maybe in part because. No, I don't know. I was going to say because it's become a little more transitory. In the old days, what the old days are, through the Cold War and whatever, 70s and early 80s, people would join and the idea was, I'm here for good. I'm going to retire.
Right.
And now it's, somewhat of a stepping stone to other things. And so people move through these organizations on their way to somewhere else. And maybe that creates, some of this. But I don't want to say it couldn't happen. I just want to say, it's something you have to be always aware of. I think that there have been individuals in various offices who got too close or too comfortable with political access. Like with the CIA, you always want your director to have a good line of communication with the president. Right? It used to be more important when the director had a seat at the table. Right now they're pushed below the DNI. So the DNI is the guy that talks, and the agency director doesn't have the same access that they used to have.
When did that change?
After 9/11. When they recreated the Homeland Security became the buzzword, and how do we reorganize? Because clearly it was a fucking knee-jerk reaction to 9/11. Was the idea was something happened, we fucked up, so now let's reorganize the entire thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so they tossed a baby out of the 30th floor, and wasn't an actual baby. People are going to be like making notes,
They get it, baby with the bathwater.
Find a baby, and so then they created this DNI position, and they kind of
what does DNI stand for?
Director of National Intelligence. And so then they subjugated the CIA director below that. But the point being is, you want that access. Well, if it gets too cozy, or if the person in charge, whether it's the agency or the FBI or whoever, becomes too much of a political animal, now you got a problem, right? And that's when bad things can happen. But the career people that I dealt with, that I met with over the years, and the people that I still know, the career people, they, for the most part, they just want to do the job, right? And I know people are going to say, well, of course that's what you're going to say, and I say that all the time. But fuck it, it's what I saw. So I got I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's ass, but